Students, what's the funniest thing that happened in remote learning? Professor's internet crashed. The class continued with one guy changing his Zoom background to a weather report of some random city. He proceeded to give a legit sounding news report of the weather. When the professor came back, he finished it off with, "Back to you, professor. Had me in tears." One time, a girl in my English class accidentally spent a solid 10 minutes talking to her boyfriend with a mic and camera on. She went into personal life details at points, but no one wanted to be the one to tell her. She eventually took out a bong, which was when another student quickly said, name, your camera and mic are on. She turned both off without a word. Easily most awkward case of forgetting about the mic. Wow. Our teacher's toddler wandered in saying that Daddy wants to know where you hid his underwear. We could not stop laughing. I think it turned out that she hadn't hidden it and it was just in the wash. At the end of the class, the lecturer said thank you and goodbye to everyone, but forgot to turn the screen and mic off, then did a massive fart and a huge audible sigh of relief. Pop. Amazing. Professor started talking like he was giving a presentation. After like 10 minutes, someone finally pointed out he wasn't sharing his screen. At that point, he just gave up for the day and let us go super early. I asked our teacher to come play Minecraft with us and he actually came. We had a blast. Not student, but teacher. I completely embarrassed myself by forgetting to end the recording after a Google Meet lesson. So the last 5 minutes of the session is me talking to my cat. Our school doesn't have the premium software to edit the recordings, so it had to go up on Google Classroom, Cat Chat and all. Kids were asking how fluffy butt my cat is doing. Hilarious but mortified. One of my classmates went the entire class with a stormtrooper helmet on. My mum teaches high school seniors in a rural area. One kid showed up late and when she said, "Insert name, do you have a good excuse?" He replied, "Yes, Mrs. Party Shark Senior, I was training my show pig." They spent the rest of the class with the student talking about what makes a show pig, showing the class his pig's tricks. Tests are the only time we are required to have our cameras on. While looking through her students, my professor noticed something on someone's desk. The interaction went like this. "Professor, please tell me you are not drinking Pepsi for breakfast." She points at the 2-litre bottle of Pepsi on his desk. Student, nah, leans forward off camera. "It's Dr. Pepper." Shows the camera a 2-litre half-empty bottle of Dr. Pepper. "Professor, that's so unhealthy. You're a medical professionals." Student, "Not yet," takes a swig of soda. I laughed my ass off and that conversation made my day. Just now, my literature teacher had to do a call with his little daughter all over him. He even lent her his phone to have her shush down, but she would block it and run to him to unblock it every 5 minutes. Peak of the class is her screaming bloody murder while his wife emerged from the door behind him as my teacher was trying to explain who invented the word robot. My professor turned on closed captions and when he finally figured out what it was he was like, "What type of communist Nintendo technology is this?" Some guy I know took a crap with his mic on unknowingly. It was silent, then just a little plop. I'm dying just thinking about it. Oh, that's awkward. Holy crap, this blew up. Thanks, kind stranger. Well, 2 instances that come to mind. We had been having a rough week as a class with assignments and exams. One of my professor's kids came on near the microphone and said, "You okay? Really? I love you all." It was a little thing, but it made all of us smile for sure. 2, this happened a couple of weeks before those exams. We weren't in the right headspace because back then Amazon wasn't delivering, so none of us had books as such and it was difficult to manage assignments without them. One of our professors asked us to close whatever notebook we had in front of us and spent the next 2 hours of her class talking about mental health of each one of us. More than half the people cried that day on that VC, but none of us felt weird or anything. That's amazing to hear, that's awesome. A couple of weeks ago I'd lost track of time and didn't realise that Zoom had started. My lovely daughter turned the camera towards me and unmuted herself, as the whole class watched me dance with and sing to my dogs. I didn't know until she pulled off her headphones and I heard a dozen kids laughing. Last semester, my son's class saw my husband set the kitchen on fire. Teachers hate my house, laugh out loud. One of my friends screamed as loud as he could, "Oh fuck." When my teacher asked him what was wrong, he said, and I quote, "Sorry, I just got attacked by my rooster." My teacher was just like, "Will, show me your rooster." He then proceeded to go outside and show my teacher his 10 chickens outside. Literally wasted half a class and was an absolute legend. First day of online classes with a very respected professor. Of the 10 people participating, 5 had their camera on, and I among these 5. I noticed my cat moving behind me, and out of nowhere the teacher shouts, "The cat fell out of the bed." At least it helped with breaking the ice. My algebra teacher has a cat who is very clingy and loves her a lot. So often she'll be doing a lesson and her cat will be sitting on the desk nearby. One time my teacher was using highlighters on some notes and Bella, the cat, suddenly grabbed one. The class heard my teacher trying to grab the highlighters from the cat when suddenly Bella's face reappeared on camera with a highlighter smear across her nose. It was really cute. Highlight of my day. Probably when this kid in my class said, "She's licking his ass," when we were watching the beginning of Land Before Time where Littlefoot's mother licks him. He didn't know his mic was on. Someone just straight up typed the word porn in the chat with no context. I'm pretty sure he meant to type it into Google. Someone accidentally joined with a video camera and he was full on naked in front of the class. Teacher was a 6-year-old woman in health class and it was just full on awkward the entire class. Our geography teacher accidentally left her screen share on, went to her email and clicked on a message, the first sentence of which was, "Dear," our teacher's name, "I'm so sorry about your divorce with Jeremy. She never realised." I had a 9 AM class and the professor was being so obnoxiously loud and a student didn't know their mic was on and called the professor annoying and said he was going to jerk off to pass time. Wow. I teach college students. Boyfriend of one of my students walked by naked in the background during lecture. I think he had just gotten out of the shower. A bunch of boys in my AP English class decided one Friday to turn their cameras on and wear hats, like sombreros, cowboy hats and fedoras. The teacher found it comical and went to his closet to get himself a hat as well as sunglasses. In the end, there were around 10 people wearing hats and sunglasses in the meeting. I love that, that's great. Daughter's a special ed preschool teacher. On Zoom, it is as hilarious as it sounds. She discovered that when she loses internet, Zoom chooses a co-host if one isn't assigned. A 3-year-old became co-host until she could get back online, using a phone tether. Her aide is now the permanent co-host. When my teacher didn't understand something, so he let out some colourful language, realised his mic was on, laughed nervously, then went on like nothing happened. My teacher lets us draw on a presentation. One guy decides to try to doodle his interpretation of a penis. It wasn't until I went, "What the hell is that?" that the teacher choked on his coffee and went, "Guys, no fooling around with doodles, what is that?" The guy answered, "It's a bicycle." My teacher responded, "Right, and that's totally where the wheels go." Had my friends and I cackling for a good minute. Great stuff. Our art teacher's youngest daughter, he has 5 kids, all girls, was just sobbing in the background, laughing my ass off. Why? My teacher wouldn't let her swim in the puddle she made on the ground. The entire exchange was captured on mic, so everyone had a nice laugh out of it. Love art, such a chill class. A girl texted her boyfriend to please bring her charger. He decided that he didn't really want to get dressed, so he opened the door and army crawled to her in his boxers, not realising that the floor was in full view of the camera. He gave her the charger and then army crawled right out. Amazing. Weirdly enough, the class just continued like nothing had happened, while me and like 2 other people died laughing. Since 90% of people in Mexico have quesadillas for breakfast, twice already have I heard students destroy everyone's hearing by shouting to their families, "2 quesadillas, por favor," without realising they have their mic on. Thought it was really funny. A classmate's dog walked in and tackled her in the middle of class mid-answer, and so we heard her fighting with her dog while also explaining the composition of DNA and RNA. My classmates and I just randomly started talking about why we like or dislike certain morning drinks, and we kept calling coffee bean soup. and the teacher even joined in. We talked about it for a good 15 to 20 minutes, and then we went on with the class as though nothing happened. I was lecturing on Google Meet and was holding my newborn son. My wife was recovering from a C-section, so I taught a couple of weeks with the baby a lot. I teach high school, and while wrapping up my geometry lesson, I asked if anyone had any questions. Before anyone could answer, my son had a loud, explosive poop that went up his back. Some students gagged, a lot laughed, and the one lady in my class who was a mum said, "Ah, I bet you feel better, huh?" Not as good as some of these, but my 6-year-old was in his K class and each student was naming something with the letter A. Of course, there was basic stuff like apple, art, and so on. Teacher called on my son and he comes out with African wild dog. His favourite stuffy is that, which is why he knows that. Derailed the whole class for like 10 solid minutes. There were 2 K teachers on the call. One looked it up, shared their screen, and the kids had an impromptu lesson on African wild dogs. A kid in my history class changed his virtual background to a video of flames and stared into the camera and repeatedly said, "Repent." When the teacher asked him to stop, he changed his background back to normal and said, "Inshallah." My science teacher's daughter walked in and said, "Daddy, can I have a sandwich?" My son is 8 years old and has ADD and is just done with remote learning. Recently he got frustrated and messaged his teacher, "This is dumb. I hate this. I'm not learning anything." Except he accidentally messaged it to the entire class. A co-worker of mine was teaching an online dance class for preschool students, 5 to 7 or so. A girl wet her pants to her mum sent her to the bathroom to change. She came out and stepped in front of the camera having changed into her birthday suit. Oh no.